For those of you just joining us, I am Lauren Van Amert from RDU on Stage. And everyone knows you and loves you because the minute I put out this announcement, everyone emailed me and said what a joy this was going to be and how people wanted to watch it. But I am here with Tristan Andre Parks, who is so darn talented. I've seen you dance at least twice, and I'm sure more than that, but two times that I remember were Ragtime and Life of Galileo, and it was mesmerizing. So I'm so appreciative you're sitting with me today
Thank you.
tonight.
And I'm appreciative of your kind words. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Uh, and if you joined us right at the beginning, you got the end of our conversation. We were talking about cats, and that's a whole other conversation. So we are just not doing that. and we were talking about the movie Cats.
The
Not
movie, the film
we're
adaptation.
talking
Yes.
about the film adaptation Cats. But anyway, so I want to know, when did you discover dance? I mean, did you come out of the womb dancing? Were you 2 years old? The minute you walked, could you dance?
uh, Pretty much. It's just in outside of the context of academia and classical training, um, formal training. I began movement was something that I just had inherently known at such a young age. And, my grandmother, who, her home was a fortress for all of my family, my aunts, my cousins, my mom. And I remember every day after school, my cousins and I would walk home after school because the walk was only like a 10-15 minute walk. And we'd go to my grandmother's house and, we'd eat our afternoon snacks, watch, PBS. And then we go outside and play and wait for our moms to come and pick us up off of work because my grandmother would watch all of the grandchildren as we waited for our parents to come pick us up. So, so once our parents arrived, my mom arrived and all my aunts would arrive, they would sit on the front porch of my grandmother's home. And we'd be all gathered around, and it was a ritual. It was a ritual. And I'm remembering this as I speak to you right now. But I would perform all the time in front of my grandmother's home, 1102 North 6th Street. And people in the neighborhood will walk by. And again, my mom, she didn't put me in classes because that wasn't even a thing. She was a single parent trying to raise 3 children. And but dance was inherently in me because I would just perform in front of my grandmother's house. And I remember, just random passerbyers saying, look at him, he's getting down, or, and me and my cousins would have a dance battle, or, it'd be a whole thing. And so dance has always inherently been in me. And I think it's a generational thing because my family, they move, and there's always music when there's gathering, and there's always dance. And so I think that's where it all began for me.
So, did your grandmother ever get to see you perform on stage once you received training and did your first performances, your first shows?
You know what? I believe she did, because once I went to a performing arts high school, and that's where I received my first formal training, and I got accepted into National School of the Arts for high school. And that sort of was a pivotal moment for me, and a revelatory moment for me as a young artist, to say, I'm going to pursue this dance career and this theater career. And if I do recall, she was able to come and see some of my performances, some of my recitals in high school, and got to see me perform at graduate. I don't believe she got to make my graduation, but yeah, I do believe that she got to witness me. But I just remember just the tender moments of her just being present when I was moving and dancing around her house, and she'd shake her head sometimes and say, "That's just Tristan dancing and moving," or she just she'd acknowledge it and move on.
So you're one of three kids. You have brothers or sisters or both?
Well, I'm one of four, so I have two sisters, and I had a brother who passed away um, 4 years ago.
Mm.
And so yeah, so I have two sisters now. They're younger than me, Sydney and Blair, and they're beautiful young women. And we just moved one of my sisters to Texas last week because she's getting ready for graduate school at Texas Women's University, and I'm proud of her. And yeah. So I'm now the oldest.
Did you choreograph your siblings? Did you?
Yes, I did. I did. I did. I did. I remember. So one summer, my sister Sydney and we spent the summer with our uncle Reggie, who then lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and my dad had flown us out to Phoenix to spend an entire summer with my uncle, which was my dad's brother, and I remember that summer curating a whole performance right before my sister and I were leaving. And I choreographed my cousins and my sister, and my uncle and my aunt Brooke, had to buy tickets. We had the whole concession set up. We had the box office set up, and I believe we have it on videotape still, of my cousins dancing, and I curated the entire event. And so that's another tender moment of me, remember, just my relationship to dance. And that was actually a little bit before I had gotten to National School of the Arts, where I began to sort of hone what was already there. But yeah.
You know, I I I always considered myself an artist. I was a visual artist for a long time. And, once an artist, always an artist, but I wasn't trained as an artist. And I always kind of said, I feel like I was a better artist because no one taught me the rules. When you got to high school and you started learning, honing those skills, did you ever feel boxed um, in your art, if that makes any sense?
So I did, it wasn't in high school actually, because that was, to me, I believe at that point I had really found a deep love and a passion for it, because I was finally developing a language. I then understood, like, oh, I am mastering what was already here inside of me. And so I would really push myself to really work and hone, the skill, the talent that was there. And so it wasn't until, to be honest with you, and I got to college and had a great collegiate experience in theater, and it wasn't until grad school that I really was struggling as a young adult, being in a professional graduate program, and like understanding the politics of how this industry is working, and also trying to maintain the love that I have for it. And it wasn't until graduate school where I really found myself ebbing and flowing with my relationship to theater, to and to dance as well. Because to be frank with you, the older you get, the wiser you get, and the more conscious you become of politics, and you begin to question yourself. Well, why does this aesthetic have to be in this way? And, we so that and so you yes, and that's a political thing, when we bring gender, when we bring race into play, when we bring all of these, intersectional identities into play that are not necessarily the standard. It can really it's something to really wrestle with, and you wrestle with yourself at night about it, you know, and you find yourself falling out of love with it. And, you know, and I think for myself now, and perhaps we'll get to this, but I feel the volition to speak about it. But I think for myself now, being out of the institution, I feel a certain freedom to be able to lead with my heart again, and lead with what feels right to me, without having to follow this prescribed version of what it is to be a good artist, you know. And so I think that that's something that I'm interested in disrupting. And that is something that I'm interested in interrogating on my journey and my practice as an artist, and someone who is working to bring art and social justice into to marry the two in a contemporary form. So, yeah.
We talked about before we went live. You had an experience in grad school. Some of the interviews I did last week, excuse me, pointed out that a lot of the systemic racism we have in the theater industry stems from professional education training programs. So, can you talk about your experience in grad school as a Black man, a Black artist, and did you experience that? I mean, you probably have experienced it your entire life, but what happened in grad school
Yeah,
to yeah,
I
you
follow.
got
Yeah,
it. We talked
I
about this
follow.
before we went live. So.
Yeah. I follow. There was an event that took place my second year in grad school in fall 2017, and you know, there was a professor, a voice and speech professor, who um, introduced an exercise that entailed physical exertion, such as smacking, and he would the exercise again, like it was, it encompassed him going around in the circle and smacking each of the graduate acting students as a acting exercise to sort of provoke and invoke emotional availability and how available you are. And again, as I talked about earlier, we're living in this vicious cycle of normalizing trauma and normalizing violence, and whether it be physical or symbolic, you know, and this was both physical and symbolic. And in that moment, my instinct was that this was not wise, but due to me being so dutiful and diplomatic as a means of survival, and wanting to show up in the work and show up for my cohort, I said yes, he could. And so that, once I allowed him to smack me, that invoked a lot of history in me, which I did not realize was necessarily there on the conscious level, but it on my subconscious gave way to the conscious. And in that, I told him that was unacceptable. Um, that was the PG version in what I explained. And as I'm speaking to you, and I'm speaking to you soberly right now, I told him soberly that was unacceptable. And that's unfortunate that you wanted to do that exercise to invoke emotional availability. And I think that isn't new within the paradigm of theater as well, because we know there's a history, and we know now where all of these artists who are coming forward, who have gone through these graduate programs, or who work in regional theaters, or who are going through or working in the academy, have seen these vicious cycles of, you know, in order to be, again, this great artist, that you have to succumb to suffering, and that we have to suffer in order to be great. And that, again, I want to reiterate right now that that's a fraudulent idea, that you do not have to suffer to be a great artist, that you do not have to succumb to state sanctioned violence in order to have your name written among, cemented in the walls of history. So I think that a part of like our unlearning and what is called decolonizing our bodies is to say no to violence. A part of that is to say, no, I have a right to access my emotions healthily. And that's what makes art a craft, is that we can access places with technique, which is why we come to learn, so that we have a foundation there, which all techniques means is that there's a foundation that we can always bring ourselves back to, so that we can, live our lives healthily. And so, yeah, so that was a really anomalous experience for me during that time. And I found myself at that time wanting to advocate for myself and feeling the volition to advocate for myself. But I understood that there's, as James Baldwin says, there's always a price to come with, utilizing your voice. And, I always think of Audre Lorde, Black feminist activist Audre Lorde, is when, your silence will kill you. And so I felt that in that moment that there was a price to come with me speaking up. And so in that moment, I silenced myself as a means of survival. I didn't want to, be recognized as, the Black queer boy who is, causing a lot of turbulence in the program. However, that did come at the means of my own spiritual and mental health. And so that was a big learning lesson for myself. And now that I feel free, when I say that I feel free in so many ways now as an artist, a year out of the program, I mean that in a spiritual sense, in a political sense, and in a creative sense. And so, that happened. And I'm still dealing with the residue of that. I'm still in the process of healing from that. But fortunately for me, I've had a group of people who have shown me beautiful support and serious support, and have affirmed for me that that I was in my right mind and that I am in my right mind. And I'm just thankful for community.
When you look at what's happening in our landscape now, there's so many Broadway performers, so many people on regional stages that are coming forward, telling similar stories to what you just described. And I'm wondering why. When I interviewed Nicole Brewer last week, she was telling me reporting is very important, reporting what's happened, because it holds people accountable. So, having been through what you went through in that experience, seeing what you're seeing now, why is reporting so important? Why do we need to hold companies accountable for their actions?
Well, that's nuanced, and I want to interrogate that question deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, I want to say that there's power in numbers, and that once one person comes forth and says that this has happened to me, we've seen that with movements all over. We've seen that recently in a modern sense with Me Too, where women and victims of sexual violence are coming forward and saying that your time is up. The time is up. The time is up. And so there is power in numbers when we as Black people can come forward, or we as Black LGBTQ folks can come forward and say that time is up, and that you can't utilize my creative property and not see me fully as a human. You can't utilize my skill or my talent and not see that I breathe and I love and I ebb and I flow. like just like everyone else, then why would you want me to work for your institution, for me to tell stories that deal exactly with this certain um, with this certain idea, with this certain um, experience that we are experiencing. And that is why it's important for us to collectively come forward now and say that this happened to me in the theater, or this happened to me in the institution, in the work institution, where I felt unsafe. I was othered. Um, I was taken advantage of in this way. It's a serious matter. It's a serious matter because trauma is, we normalize trauma. This is a thing since beginning of, civilization and establishing the Western world. We are dealing with the reverberations of so much state-sanctioned violence, the murders and the lynchings of so many Black bodies that are happening, and to other people in that way. It's a sociopathic disease that we are witnessing here. And in 2020, we are speaking truth to power to this disease that is occurring here in the Western world. And so I think that that's why it's important that, I am Tristan. I'm Tristan Andre Furs, the son of Mary Robinson Corley and the son of Christopher Andre Parks, the brother of Sidney Parks and Blair Wright. And that's who I am first, before I am someone who, you can utilize my creative property to contribute to your theater for. First we have to discuss who I am before, you can utilize my gift or my skill set in order to bring to life, what it is that your institution desires to bring to life. And that's why it's important, and that's in every institution, whether it be in the theater, in any workforce.
But in order to honor you as Tristan, the son and the brother and the friend and the artist, I have to bring Tristan to the table to talk with me and walk alongside me and help drive the decisions. And until that happens, these solidarity statements that we're seeing from all these theaters, that's lip service unless
It
you
is very hollow.
yes.
It is hollow. And I think that there is a matter of justice. We keep hearing this word justice, and I don't mean that romantically or arbitrarily. I mean justice in a sense where these theaters and these institutions take into account economically. First and foremost, you take into account, you pay your Black artists what they are worth. You pay your artists of color what they are worth. You pay your women artists and your Black women artists what they are worth. And so that's we have to talk about the economic value of all of that. And also the creative value is which you're asking me to bring this thing to life, and yet you still don't fully see me as that someone who loves deeply and someone who makes decisions, who makes human life decisions, which is what with the vitriol of racism, how racism functions in our world. And so I think right now is, again, as you stated, we're witnessing a bunch of lip service, a bunch of hollowness right now. But until, once there is economic justice, we can then have that discussion about, what it is that you want me to produce for your institution, or how you want me to be in collaboration or in conversation with
in collaboration.
That's right. So
that's
not me just merely coming into you and coming into your institution acting as an auxiliary, but someone who is actually contributing and and giving and speaking truth to power, when it comes to building these stories in which we pride ourselves on as a people. Um,
Nicole Brewer, she spoke about this, and she's just such a good speaker and educator herself. But she said it's the difference between having a transactional relationship with your artists and a relational um, relationship with your artists. And if you're treating it like a transaction, it shows. And if you develop those relationships, that shows also. So I hope, my hope is that the theaters will back up these solidarity statements with action plans.
that's the hope. And again, I think that in I, I myself, um, I feel empowered now, just on my life journey as an individual artist. And I want to encourage other artists, Black artists, artists of color, and Black women artists and women artists to, you know, not only, I always think of Shirley Chisholm, the ancestor who, you know, we knew who ran for 1972 president of the United States, first Black woman to run for president of the United States, Shirley Chisholm. If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Well, now in 2020, I have the belief that we can build our own tables, and that will take time. And I don't say that romantically. And it will take strategy, and it will take organizing, and it will take creative prowess to really bring that all to life. But I believe where there is a vision, where there's collective vision, there is power, and we can manifest that. And so we don't have to bring folding chairs to any more tables anymore. That's a decision that is available to us now. And so I just always want to be aware of that. And I've been having that conversation with myself and been empowering myself in that way of like, I was speaking with a friend the other day and telling her, I was doing the whole New York thing, and I love and hate New York. The reasons I hate New York are the reasons that I love it. And I think that what it is that I hate about New York, and that I have to call into action and interrogate, is just the machine of that, and witnessing it and witnessing the machine firsthand, of this hustle, 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 grind, grind, grind mentality of like, I'm racing the capitalist machine. In competition is then called into play. And so we have to interrogate all of that, of which is why I'm very happy, and I'm all over the place. So forgive me, Lauren, but I'm all over the place. But I've been very happy to come home to remember myself, and remember that I am not a machine, that I am, again, Tristan Andre, the son, the brother, the cousin, the friend, the community member, first and foremost, before I am going to audition for your Broadway play, And so I have to take into that account. And I have the power within myself to create. I am inherently a creator. So I don't have to wait on permission for anyone to tell me that I can create when, again, I always have, as a friend always says to me, you can't edit a blank page. So write. Toni Morrison said, I wrote my first book because I wanted to read it. And I think of that in terms of myself as an artist. I'm writing and generating material for myself, or creating material and for myself, because there's a need for me to do it. And there's a call, versus me, waiting for someone to give me permission, which is what we are all, victims of. And it's fraudulent. It's a fraudulent idea, mentality. And we now have to interrogate it and decolonize ourselves of that idea that we are machines, and we lose artistry. We lose the art.
We're in this really interesting moment when our entire theater community, pretty much worldwide, is shut down. And so no artists, sadly, are really working right now, because we don't have theater, we don't have our venues, if we weren't in this moment where people weren't working and Broadway was open and all these shows were running, would people feel empowered to be speaking out as they are now, do you think?
As a collective, I don't want to be too ambitious as I answer this, but as a collective, I don't think we'd be witnessing as many people come forward. Mm. Which, you know, and again, I want to remove myself, attach any romanticism from my language, because I'm very intentional when I speak about, you know, justice and what it means to live a life free from the establishment. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that we'd be witnessing it in this way. Not to say that there aren't artists out there and social justice workers out there disrupting and disturbing and disturbing the peace, as James Baldwin says, as every artist has to disturb the peace. And what we are witnessing right now, Lauren, is a collective disturbing of the peace. And I think that this time, and I don't want to say this, and I'll say this intentionally, because I do want to honor the lives that have been lost to this pandemic and the mourning and the grief of the loss of work and artists, you know, being in the living in the unknown right now, because we've been so used to, you know, waiting for an establishment to, you know, hire us. Mm-hmm. But I think right now is indeed, I want to say, a profound time. It's profound. And I think it was vital for us to witness this profound era. And that's what I will say about it. It's a profound time. And it's vital for us right now to actually have to sit with ourselves, is what I'll say.
It's funny you said that, Germana, she wrote on Facebook, we would not be witnessing the amount of people speaking up if we weren't forced to face it and sit in it. So I think that's
I love you, Germana. My girl, G. My girl.
I think there's a mutual love fest going on between you and her.
That's my girl. Beautiful inside and out.
And such a beautiful voice as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the intersection of art and activism. When did you realize that you could channel activism through movement and through performance?
Well, I spent a summer at ADF, the biggest dance festival in the US. And that was a big revelatory moment for me as an artist and as a dance artist, because I developed so many relationships with so many young and ambitious and creative dance artists that are there who have unique and singular voices and are wanting to contribute to the canon of just archiving great dance work. And there I met and began a relationship with a woman named Nia Love, who is a Harlem-based choreographer and dance scholar, and dance researcher. And I developed a relationship with her, and I had just risen in love with the work that she had done. I had taken a course with her titled Occupy at ADF, and it was a site-specific course where we had to study. It was a dance study on what it meant to occupy different spaces, scientifically, creatively, and what it meant to like disturb, interrogate, disrupt, and establish space through movement in a site-specific way. And that was the first moment I had come to realize that, wow, this is a really unique and singular way that I have yet to explore as an artist that is so rooted in the language of social justice, which she uses a lot of the words interrogate the space. She says, freak the space. It was her famous phrase, was always freak the space, always bring into question, what about the space that is it that you didn't realize that was there before, versus when you first witnessed the space, and how inside it are you witnessing, and then step out of it and then go back into it and return to the study again, the dance study again. And so Nia, to me, Nia Love, I owe everything to, whom I love dearly, dearly, dearly. She is a consummate artist, a consummate dance artist who is always, in every sense of the word, bringing vernacular to the space when it comes to movement and dance work, vernacular to the space that includes a way of living. Our way of living, which is what social justice work is that I am taking up space in this way to say I am here, I'm fully alive, and I'm fully human. That's what social justice work is. And so Nia really awakened my conscience to the possibility of what it meant to learn dance all over again in a outside of the Western gaze, Western classical concert gaze. And so I owe it to her. And that was summer 2017 when I took that course with her. And that was the moment I vowed to always use my work as a serious study of human life, of establishing that that the diaspora also has a place in the canon of art, of archiving dance work. And I owe it to Nia, who has really, she awakened my conscience to that possibility.
It sounds to me, it's so interesting. You're teaching this camp, this class this week to young adults, 17 and up, which I love because I have a 17-year-old who is signing up for your class. But I think we are so connected to our devices that we lose what it is to be present. And what you're talking about, interrogating your space, interrogating your surroundings, that's a lesson in being present, which I think that there's a lost art in that. And so I feel that through performance, you can get that back. When we watch you perform, we can't be on our phones, can't be on our devices. We have to give you our undivided attention. So I feel like the art not only teaches empathy, but teach us to be present.
That's right. That's right.
That's what I hear you saying when you're talking about interrogating your space and being aware, not through a screen, but in real life, which we sometimes forget.
Yeah, that, and also, having to, as we establish as an audience who we are so, we're so prone to the Western gaze, how we come to witness art, right? So we come, we buy our tickets, we come, and it's, this entertain me aspect of there's audience, there's performer, there's a sense of establishing, like there's a fourth wall right there, this very linear, we know the linear, and I use that term linear in a way, not to, just in the sense of like, there, that way of witnessing art has been the only way. So there's this linear way in which we come to witness art, in which the art that I'm interested in, which is the diaspora, the art that has been birthed from my people post the transatlantic slave trade, when they were boarded, when the ship arrived, and my people were, shackled and enchained. what did it mean for them to keep their art? What did it mean for them to witness their art? And for them, for people whose song and whose dance has been stripped from them, and in spite of all of that, they found ways to keep it. And so I'm interested in a witnessing, as James Baldwin always says, when you read his writings or his work, there is a witnessing that is taking place. You can't help but to witness Baldwin's writing versus, reading it, you're witnessing it. You're witnessing it. You can't help but to witness the poetry of Lucille Clifton or Sonia Sanchez. You can't help but to witness it. And so, or witness the work of dance artists like Catherine Dunham or Pearl Primus, who were interrogating their work in a way that disrupted the Western patriarchal gaze. And so I think that that's also what I mean. Yes, in the 2020 sense, we're so, we have succumbed to our devices. We are living in the digital world. And yes, that, and what is a new way we as audiences, and to my question and my call to action, my clarion call would be to theaters all around the globe, would be to how can we witness art differently, and how can we engage communities in innovative and creative ways that we, in what ways can we do the necessary work that, we have been shying away from?
And that's how you build a new audience. We always talk about building a new audience, attracting a new audience. I think that's the key right there. But you are preaching to the choir right now. So um, through the COVID crisis, we've seen people lean on the arts truly as a coping mechanism to get through this period of self-isolation and quarantine. But in the last 2 weeks, the news of George Floyd's murder, the killing of two Black transgender women, it's an endless news cycle, it seems like. And I know in doing some of these interviews and speaking with my Black friends, Black and brown people right now, they are so exhausted. Their emotions are so raw. They're angry. There's a lot of anger, but when we've done our torn panels, there's this weariness and raw emotions. So how can we lean on the arts during this time to help validate what we're feeling and help navigate all of these emotions?
Well, I think first we have to, before we turn to art, we have to turn to ourselves. And I think that right now, to be frank, white people and the system has to sit with itself right now first and reckon with whiteness and how the history of it. The Republic has to sit with that right now. And then, as far as art goes, I think that there has to be, again, I don't want to turn this romantic at all. And I've been saying that, and I will continue to establish that, but there has to be a deep listening in art right now. There has to be a deep listening when you decide to turn to literature, or you decide to take that workshop, dance course, or whatever workshop right now. There has to be a deep listening. And what I mean by deep listening is that there has to be, you can't escape, but utilize the art to fuel what's next, what's to come.
Mm.
I think that that's the power of art, is that you can't escape you. And I think strong art, good art, is always there to remind us that we can't escape you, which is why, I am a child of James Baldwin. Anytime I read his work, never once was it filtered. Never once. He was brutally honest with his past, reckoning. He was always reckoning with the nuances of things that have happened with him. And in the race, the vitriol of just the violence of what he witnessed in Harlem, and just the witnessing of how whiteness treated him during the 20th century, mid 20th century, as a young boy coming up in Harlem and witnessing his father, who was a minister and who worked at a shoe factory and raised 9 children, and having to understand his father's behavior was just the byproduct of how his father was treated in the world. So I think that when we decide to turn to art, don't utilize it as an escape, but utilize it as a deep listening.
Absolutely. And I will say some of the feedback I've received from white friends and family members and audiences watching these chats and our torn conversations is they're feeling uncomfortable. And to them, I say, good, because that's when we can begin to learn, is when we feel uncomfortable and begin interrogating ourselves and our past. And I know people have criticized the last week what we're doing here in our Do on Stage, but we're just going to keep on doing it because this is how the work gets done. And this is how we learn and listen to each other. So you don't like it, tune out. I won't judge you.
We're going to continue to interrogate, and you have the choice to join the right side. So
yeah, it's funny. My husband said that exact same thing, that this is this moment where we get to choose, what side. I'm worried about our young people. I have young people in my house, but some other Black and brown friends of mine who are young, some of them call me mom. They've come to me and they're hurting, and some of them are very afraid to speak out. Some of them are afraid to use their voice or find their voice. I know you're teaching this class for JTP. Tell me about the class and what you hope the young people taking the class. And when I say young people, we're talking about young adults, because this is 17 and up. What do you hope they get from it?
Well, particularly, I hope that the number of Black and brown young people is profound, firstly, foremost, because the class is for them first. And what I hope that they walk away with is a sense of pride and knowledge of how they can show up in the world, and that there's an unlearning that happens there, while in the midst of that unlearning we are learning. And that's my hope, that's my deep hope, is that we can remember our pleasure, and we can remember that we can that we are alive, and that we have an opportunity to unlearn and to learn. And this is this is what the workshop, which I always want to reiterate that word, it is a workshop. So we'll be working through, interrogating and studying certain movements in the classes for everybody. And so I just want to remember that, but establish that those Black and brown babies, and empower them in a way where they're prideful and that they remember who they are and whose they are. Yeah.
Mhm. I love that. And the classes, um, to me, it's a master class for a very good price. Some people have sent me camp information, and the costs are exorbitant, and it's hard for me to get behind those camps or classes because people don't have money right now. A lot of people aren't working, but this one is very affordable, and I hope everybody will will take it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I want it to be, it's a matter, economic justice again. Like, this is not in any way to gain any, you know, capital, but this is a rather a space that I'm more interested in challenging myself first and foremost, and in challenging my community, and reminding my community that we are yet alive, and that yet we are here, and that we do have our pleasure, and we do have our joy, and we can lean into that as well as the grief and the mourning, that the two can coexist, that all of that can coexist, because we are human, and that is, the radical thing, the ordinary, extraordinary idea, because, our radicalness lies in our mundane, our ability to just be who we are, in a world that hasn't allowed for us to be who we are, based off of a standard, which has been white, which has been male, which has been cisgender, which has been patriarchal. And so we're having to disrupt and interrogate all of that, and to interrogate trauma, and establish that trauma is not normal. It's absurd to harm someone. And so this is a class of healing.
do you see this moment that we're witnessing, um, this, and I'm not saying this judgmentally, I'm saying this joyfully, this uprising we are witnessing? Is there a permanence to this? Does this feel different than other times in the past when we've seen similar uprisings?
Well, I think we have to take into account too, um, we have to take into account all of the insurrections that have happened, during slavery. And we have to take into account Nat Turner and all of those, like, profound insurrections that have happened, during the 17th, 18th century. And, like, that is now in the contemporary form, we're witnessing, an insurrection. And I think the insurrections are ongoing. Just the ways in which we witness them have been different. And the ways in which generations have responded have been differently. But there has been an ongoing insurrection since, slavery, and so I think the ways in which we'll witness it will be new. And Angela Davis just recently spoke about this, but she recently spoke in, I've been seeing, I've been seeing some friends online and on social media mention, well, where is Angela Davis? We still live in a world where Angela Davis is still alive. And why isn't she using her platform? But what's so beautiful about witnessing Angela Davis's response to that is that there's a new generation of young people who are doing work and interrogating work that, they're more equipped in. However, I'm passing the baton to them, not to say that Angela Davis is not still doing her own work, but what was empowering was to witness Angela Davis speak with pride about this generation of young people who are the now, not the future, but the now, and to see that they are doing this necessary, vital work to get our elected officials to listen, to get people in positions of power to listen, to get the House and the Senate to listen to what we have been saying for 400 plus years. So, yeah. So yes, it is perm. Yes, it's here to stay. We will be doing, it's a lifetime's worth of work that we are doing.
I want to talk about voice and dance. Last year, Lara Spencer on Good Morning America made a really insensitive comment on the air about boys in ballet. And having a son who found such joy in dance when he was younger, and as he was made fun of and ridiculed, became a closet dancer, I say, because now he only dances within these four walls. What would you say to those boys in dance who have been bullied or have questioned themselves? What can you say to them?
Everything that you feel in your spirit is affirmed. That's the affirmation enough. If you feel called to dance, dance. You know, James Baldwin says, you know, if you feel called to write, write. Right. So dance. Dance. Dance is what I say. And I know that might not be the thing that you probably would expect, but I think that I'm in a position where I can no longer live my life based off of the imagination of someone whose imagination is limited, who can only see through a patriarchal gaze, that who can only that men are assigned this role in life and women are assigned this role in life, and you know that there can be that there's only a binary. However, you know, dance because of and not in spite of. Dance because you feel that thing in you, that you feel that call, that thing that we cannot see, you know, because that's what it is. And that's what I'm to bring it back to the workshop, but that's what this workshop is really about. It's about us just coming together and moving. It's a meditation, a movement meditation is what it is. And just us gathering virtually together, just to move as a community virtually, so that we can remember ourselves and remember who we are. And to those Black boys out there that want to move and dance, do it, dance. And I know that you have so much working against you, so much telling you that, you know, that you have to perform this level of masculinity that has been assigned to you, but it's fraudulent. And, you know, you were born to move and to create. So do it, and do it because of, and not in spite of, because somebody told me I can't. And in fact, I will do it. You know? And it's not easy. But I think that practice can make a master. Practice can make a master.
What is your dream role?
My dream role is a work that I have been creating for a year, that which the community, we've workshopped around the triangle quite a bit over the last year. And it is James Baldwin, and also Bynum Walker and Joe Turner's Come and Gone, August Wilson. And that's in Stool Pigeon from King Hedley II, which is also another Wilson play. But those are three of my dream roles, and I know I won't play stool pigeon or Bynum for a long time, but that's okay because I will, and the time will come.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, my focus is Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy, so James Baldwin. So, and I believe with everything to come into to place with all of the work that my team and my collaborators and I um, are establishing, I believe that it will all come into fruition in due time. So I have faith in it. So yeah.
What is on your pandemic playlist?
Right now on my pandemic playlist, I've been listening to Stevie Wonder a lot. I have been listening to uh, Aretha Franklin. Uh, I've really been into NDRE. And Lady Gaga's new album, Chromatica. Lady Gaga, I love. It's a great workout album. It's just a fun dance house record, and I just pump to it, and it's a fun record. But yeah, that's what's been on my playlist.
And you're cooking. So, what is your favorite pandemic go-to meal?
Oh, so I've been preparing my family omelets, like these really like superb omelets that I've just been like, in the kitchen making. So I've been making omelets. That's been my favorite thing. And I haven't been an omelet eater at all. And I don't consider myself like an omelet connoisseur. However, I enjoy my omelets. And I've just began to eat omelets, but I've been preparing omelets for my mom and my sister in the morning. And, a good classic, protein chicken, get me some good starch in there with some purple potatoes, actually season them with rosemary and yeah, and some jasmine rice. It's just been, I love it. And just steam and stir frying vegetables has been my favorite thing. And yeah, and I've been watching the Netflix. I just watched the Netflix show called Cooked with Cannabis. And so I've enjoyed that. And that's been kind of inspiring me. Not that I consider myself, I do not cook with cannabis world, but I've enjoyed watching it. And I've just been inspired by the art of cooking and the culinary arts, and just find myself as an adult appreciating it more and more. Yeah.
Well, and it brings people together. Brings people.
It does. It does. Food has that power, and to watch a chef, the artist, witness people eat their food. It's I enjoy the pleasure of it. My mom asking me what's for dinner, and I'm like, wow, okay, so
Full circle moment, huh?
yeah, it's definitely full circle.
Well, I've enjoyed this hour with you so much. In the bio you sent me, I think one of the first sentences is "You are the sun," and you really are. You are the sun, and you are just a ray of light and love and inspiration for so many. And I'm an even bigger fan now because I hadn't met you before this. I had only seen you dance. So now I'm an even bigger fan.
Thank you, Lauren. It's been so beautiful
I'll
speaking
give
with
you a
you.
big, big
Virtual hug. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and I hope to see everyone on Wednesday. Yeah, you can register through the class through the Justice Theater Project website online, and or email the Justice Theater Project at gmail.com, and I'll be taking over their Instagram tomorrow. So at JTP Theater, Justice Theater Project, I I didn't script that, so yes, I'll be on the Instagram tomorrow. But I appreciate you so much, Lauren. You've been so kind and generous, and I thank you. And and I don't say that in a romantic sense, but in a sense that's serious, a serious kind of love. So I appreciate this, and it's not transactional. It's been a beautiful conversation, so I appreciate you.
well, I'm so appreciative of you, and I just look forward to seeing you on stage, and seeing your work just blossom. And then you can
Thank
come
you.
back and we can talk again and again and again.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much. Just stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Wear your mask, everyone.
Wear a mask, please, and not down here. It's got to
You
go
have to wear,
over
yeah,
here.
because you then defeat the purpose. You defeat the
Um,
purpose.
but thank you so much. I will put all the information and the links to Justice Theater Project when I repost this video later tonight so people can find the class. I will follow on Instagram tomorrow. And thank you so much.
Thank you again, Lauren. You have a beautiful night.
You too. Tomorrow, come back at noon. Rebecca Jackson, artist who I adore, and her son will be
Yeah.
with me for lunch and learn. Her son is, I think, 11, and he made his own video. Speaking of,
Hey,
I
hey.
emailed Rebecca and I said, I want to talk to you. Yes, I want to interview you, but I really want to interview your son. So they will both be with me tomorrow
Praise, praise.
because I
Yes,
think children will lead the way. So,
that's right. Steer the child in the way in which they should go. That's right. That's right. We shepherd these babies so that they can, again,
yes.
go run the race.
Yes. So come back tomorrow at noon. We'll see everyone then. Thank you, Tristan,
Thank
Andre.
you. Thank you,
Um,
Lauren. Thank you so much.
take care. Mwah.
Bye bye.